This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
He has time.
He's got him. Side touch is there. Leaping grab. Touchdown. Touchdown.
Hey, good morning. It's Kenneth in the morning. It's Monday morning. It feels like a Monday morning. Good morning, Joe.
What's going on, dude?
You got a collared shirt on this morning. It must be a special morning.
No, not really. Just taking my kids to school.
Some days you just feel like a polo tee. I get it. So, hey, we had a very uneventful NFL weekend for the most part from what little time I had. Pretty slow weekend, not much on the docket. However, there were some Bears rumors this weekend. One I find interesting because we've been talking about it. The other is like, well, let that drama with Cincinnati continue. So I guess I'll start out with the Cincinnati rumor, seeing as I just said Cincinnati. Where'd it go here? Let me pull the rumor up. So the Bears are rumored on Trey Hendrickson, and that they're offering a second round and later.
What do you mean later? Like 2027?
Yeah, I don't know if that means 2027 or a second rounder plus additional in next year's draft, but at least a second rounder plus an additional pick, maybe be it a third, fourth, next, the year after. But my question is, if the Bears were to pull the trigger on that, they got to clear some cap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because you want a new contract.
Yeah,
and what's the other thing is, what's that contract going to look like?
Probably what, 30, 35 mil a year?
Yeah, and for how long? That's the thing, is like he's going to want a 2 or 3, like a 3-year deal, maybe even a 4-year deal. And are they willing to give that? Like,
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, are you just chasing the shiny object? Yes, he was really, really good last year. Are you just chasing the shiny object, and then are you going to break like if you're in the this is a Super Bowl year now window, right? Then maybe you do it. I don't know if the Bears are at that point. I mean, most of us think they're going to be between most of us think they're going to be between 8 to 10 wins. Are they at that point where you're going to go all in, to finish out your roster? That's a good question, because the other thing that they're rumored also having to do with the state of Ohio, or at least the guy who played there last, is Nick Chubb. And word on the street on Nick Chubb is they basically have a contract in place. You just got to get to the long form version of the contract they've got like basically an agreement. Now they got to get the contract to go with the agreement, and that Nick Chubb could be a Bear relatively soon.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. I mean, it's a low risk, potentially high reward move. We talked about that already. I think Hendrickson is very expensive, and he's on the wrong side of 30. But like, look at his stats. It's not just last year. Like last year, he led the league in sacks. But look at 2 years, 3 years before that. Just for context, like he's averaged somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to like let's say 12 to 17 sacks for the last 3 years. Like he's been in that 3 or 4 years. He's been in that range. So, he could contribute.
All right, so Hendrickson is under contract for this year for 25. His base salary this year is 15.8 mil. Cap number is 18.66 mil. His valuation is way up there. His valuation is at about 28.2 mil. So 30 mil might be pretty close to what he's going to expect in compensation, right? The Bears, conversely, have $6 million in cap space.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, granted, you've got about 20 guys who aren't going to make the roster who are accounted for part of this money, but that's not going to be about 20 million. It's more about 15. So you maybe have about 20, 22 mil. Now, look, if you trade for him and you've got 20 million in cap, you're okay for this year, right? Because the extension affects you next year, correct?
Yeah.
So what's 2026 though for the Bears?
Or you could actually you could convert most of his. You could sign him to a contract and convert a large percentage of it to signing bonus, and it won't go against the cap this year. So
and next year the Bears are at 16.8 million as of now on cap. So Hendrickson is an interesting idea. Luke, I might agree with that too. But here's the thing. Well, let me finish the first thought, and then we get to Luke's thought. They have to find ways to obviously, they always find money. They restructure contracts, restructure deals with people, so on and so forth. So the money is an issue, but it's not. Now, to Luca's point, I tend to agree with Luca. Right? A second rounder plus an additional third or fifth or whatever, I don't think it's enough to get Trey Hendrickson. However, as time goes on and we get nearer to a season in which he may just decide, well, if I'm not going to get my extension with you, I'm just not going to play. The Bengals will get a little more desperate to get a resolution one way or the other, and so that asking price might go down.
I think the asking price is not what they actually expect. It's just what they're kind of hoping for, and they can, if they get half of it, I don't know. And you always ask for more than you actually want, so that way you end up with what you actually want or close to it. They have to understand that he's on the wrong side of 30. He's not guaranteed to continue to produce for the next, 3 to 4 years. Like, he could drop off a cliff at the, this season. Like, he could have a catastrophic injury that ends his career this season. It's a huge risk for a team to trade for him.
Well, that's the thing. He's 31 years old, right? So,
and he's due a huge contract.
And he's looking for a massive payday. And here's a problem. Is he going to make it to 34 or 35? Like, if I'm the Bears, I'm saying no. Unless I think I'm winning the Super Bowl this year with him, I'm saying no. I may get production this year, but it's probably going to be less than last year, which is fine. I mean, you can't have banner years every year. But I don't know if he. Yeah, I mean, so if he goes from 17 to 12 or 13, yes. Then what's he going to be next year, and the year after that? How far is he going? to, look at Von Miller. Look at all these other guys who get around 33, 34, and kind of age out. Good morning, Cam. Hope you're doing well there in the Valley of the Sun. He would still be very good. I mean, because even Khalil Mack is still playing very good at 34. It's a big risk on Hendrickson, but I think as the season gets closer, if it becomes more apparent to the Bengals that there's just no resolution, that oh Jesus, Nicholas. The Incredible Hulk has banner years. Wah, wah, wah. I think you got to laugh out of both of us, so it's good. I think it's more that asking what they're going to get is going to go down. The question is going to be who's going to want to pay that contract.
The problem for me isn't the draft compensation. Like, the problem is the contract that he's going to want. He wants a long-term deal, and I wouldn't really. I mean, 3 years. I would give him 3 years, with the third year being a team option, something like that.
Yeah, even a 4-year where the team option starts at year 3 and year 4. Like, okay, we'll give you 4 years, but year 3
2
and
of
4
our team options, yeah, exactly. Where we can cut you and not have to pay you. Like, yeah, they can let him sit, but that's gonna hit their cap, and they could use that money on other players. But another option that I was thinking about, Jadeveon Clowney just got released by the Panthers. You could get him for $5 million, pay him $1 million a sack basically, and he can add 5 sacks to maybe 7 sacks to your team.
And Mike, I mean, okay, so Mike says a second round, a 7th round, and Cole Kmet, right? I don't think that's going to happen because Ben Johnson wants a 2 tight end set, and why would you take a weapon like Cole Kmet? I get it. You're getting Hendrickson, so now you're sacrificing your offense or some offensive production for some defensive production. So it's a where do you think you have a bigger need? Is it on the offensive side or the defensive side of the ball? I don't know if I would trade Cole Kmet. I mean, he comes with a nice size contract for them, and that helps. Like, if you trade Cole Kmet, you free up some money on the cap, right? So tick for tack to afford that cap money. I don't see the Bears doing it, though. I think they want to run with both tight ends this year. I think they want Loveland and Kmet both back there, so I don't see that happening.
See, I wouldn't trade Cole Kmet. I would trade somebody like Roschon Johnson.
Right.
Like, because you're already looking at Chubb. Like, you're already looking at a guy that can come in and replace him, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Of course, Clowney's been on multiple teams with no long-term commitment. That's why I said he's kind of perfect for your situation, because he's the ultimate free agent. He comes in for 1 year. He gets you 5 to 7 sacks, and you pay him 5, 6, 7 million, and he's out the door, and he's going to the next team the next year. Or if you like him, you bring him back on another 1 year deal. But he's not looking for a long-term commitment. He understands at this point. He's happy to wear every helmet in the league. So,
Well, and then the guy we signed, Koye, whatever his name is, Deo. I'm not going to try to say his last name, but Deo. We signed him. Really, his cap hits $8 million this year, and the Bears signed him, because they're playing analytics ball, right? What I'm saying, Mike, is why would you take away from the arsenal if you don't have to? They signed Deo for $8 million because they think Deo's going to take that next step from what they saw in out of him down there in Indianapolis. So that's what I'm saying. I think the Bears are somewhat happy. They're happy with what they're going to look. I think you should add another edge rusher. We should have 4, but I don't think they're not at the point where they feel like we have to sell weapons. We have to sell off a guy like Cole Kmet to get this guy, because we've got Dale. We've got at least 3 solid guys. There will be a guy like Clowney Clowney's out there. Who else is out there?
Von Miller is out there.
Well, I don't know about Von, but Von Miller's out there. There's a couple now. These are all older guys in their 30s, like the guy you want to trade for. You could get it for a 1-year flyer for anywhere from $3 to $8 million.
A lot less risk.
we did not rank well in sacks last year. We didn't get enough pressure. We were part of the problem too is we weren't getting pressure up the middle, and we improved the middle this year. But I would agree like more with Joe. Like I would be looking to trade Rojo. If I'm going to sign Chubb, I would be looking to trade maybe Rojo more than Cole Kmet. I get though where Mike's coming from with the money aspect of it of Cole Kmet's big contract. And guys like Broski think Cole Kmet are out of here at the end of the next year when the team has an out, and this would just let them do that earlier. I don't think that they want to get rid of Cole Kmet even next year. I think if Kmet and Loveland work good together as a 2 tight end set, and that's what one of the things Ben Johnson likes to do, I don't see them get rid of Cole Kmet. It's kind of like that. To me, like people say, oh, they're going to get rid of Cole because they drafted Loveland. It's like saying, well, they're going to get rid of a running back because Ben hates him because he traded him last time he was in Detroit after a year where he was hurt almost the whole year. Obviously, Swift is still a Bear. So even if you get Chubb, he's not coming in to replace Swift. He's coming to complement Swift. Mm-hmm. So I don't buy into some of these arguments because, like, let Ben do his thing. I think Ben likes 2 tight end sets. I think he'd like to have another running back who can kind of like gash the middle to complement his guy who can gash the outside, kind of like what he had in Detroit. I mean, there are going to be some similarities to the Detroit offense, but this whole idea with trading for Trey Hendrickson, it's cool, but there's a lot of things that come with that.
A lot of risk. It's a lot of risk. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. Like I said, I would go pick up Clowney for $5 million, $7 million.
Yeah, Mike, I get the point there, but they also juiced up the middle, right? We juiced up the middle right now, right? Then we went out and signed Grady Jarrett in the middle. That was another big piece we added. I mean, look, if you can add him, he's gonna create buzz on that D. I get it. Yes, hopefully he will get very. I know, right? Nicholas is on it this morning. Morning, Mitch. If the Bears can find a way of getting Hendrickson and keep Kmet, I mean, I'm cool with it. I'm not like gonna poo-poo the idea. I mean, if you can get a guy like Hendrickson, and it works in your system, go get him. Clowney, you can get him on the cheap. But I don't know if I want Jadeveon Clowney on my roster, right? And there's some.
I mean, I've never heard anything bad about him as a player, like as a locker room guy. Like he bounces around, but it's like I've never heard him being like a cancer or anything in the locker room. He's just a guy that he likes them 1-year deals. He likes to go and try out new teams, and I think he likes the luxury of being a free agent every year because he can try to find a contender and jump on.
Yeah.
And so
Von Miller is 36. He's free. Preston Smith is 33. He's free. Zadarius Smith is out there at 33. He's out, free. Judon, a lot of people clamored for him last year. He's 33 and out there. Sam Hubbard is 30 and out there. Clowney is 32 and out there. Brandon Graham from the Eagles is 37 and out there. Probably should retire. Dennis Gardeck from the Cardinals is 31 and out there. Dwayne Smoot from the Bills is 30 and out there. All these edge rushers, you know what they all have in common that I've all named? They're all over 30 years old or older.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are a lot of guys out there in free agency who, if you really, really want an edge, you can snag them. Yeah, Luca. I mean, that's true. We all play Cincy, so it'd be nice if Hendrickson he was either on one of our teams or if he sits for the year, that would help the North. Him sitting would help North, the other 3 teams more than if you played for one of them, but yeah, I mean, so it's that's going to be interesting. So watching that, what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson and what's going to happen with Chubb are both going to be kind of some interesting little storylines we can track. And then there's a third storyline, which is an old storyline. It's kind of like, okay, when's this drama going to end? Now they're saying Aaron Rodgers may sign by the end of May.
I mean, at this point, I'm so over the Aaron Rodgers show. It's like, I don't really care where he goes, you know? It's just he makes every offseason about him. And it's like, bro, you weren't that good last year on the Jets. Like, you know?
Real quick, sorry. Grady Jarrett is an interior, not an edge, though. So you're doing a lot of apples to oranges there, comparing an interior rusher to an edge rusher. And Deo, they signed him based off his projection, right, Mike? So I get what you're saying there, but the Jarrett thing is not is what you think it is, because you're going, oh, but straight sack numbers. Yeah, but you're talking about an edge versus an interior guy. And now you add Grady Jarrett with a guy that we already like and is pretty explosive. That interior got better. So I would expect the D-line in general to be better for sacks. And Deo, they signed not based off what he's done, but what they think he's going to be, which that in itself is an inherent risk. And no one's saying that Trey Hendrickson would not give the defense a boost. The question becomes, how do you pay for it and what do you trade for it? And I don't think Cole Kmet is a part of that trade package. As far as Rodgers, yeah, I'm kind of sick of it too, Joe.
The Vikings make sense, though, dude. You know what? Like, if I was the Vikings, he's already come out and said he would play for $10 million, right? So I would hold him to that. Like, okay, you want to play for $10 million? Like, you can come in and you can compete with JJ, and you know, if you win the starting job, JJ sits for a year under Aaron Rodgers. Like, there's worse things in the world, man. Like,
here's a question, Joe. If Rodgers signs for $10 million, I think he's obviously better than JJ. JJ probably has a bright future. You know, good things going for the Vikings with JJ's of this. They have a 5th-year option on the guy, so you can afford to let him sit another year or maybe even 2, right? You have no real tread on the tire, even though he had a tore the knee issue last year, which required surgery. But you give him another year to heal, to be back up. And look at Aaron Rodgers, you probably end up playing a little bit because Aaron might get dinged up. But is Aaron Rodgers then walking into a situation in Minnesota that's better than what Favre walked into when he went to Minnesota? And we saw how that Favre took him to an NFC Championship game. Could Rodgers possibly take this team, which I think is better than what Favre walked into, take them to a Super Bowl if they were to sign Rodgers?
Yeah, I think there's a legit chance of that if he can stay healthy. I mean, he never had a. If that was true, he would be signed. Are you talking about him saying he would play for $10 million?
I think so.
Because that's what he said on the Pat McAfee show. He said, I already told him I would play for $10 million. Like, but you know, I think that's a legit possibility if he stays healthy, because Brett Favre didn't have Addison and Justin Jefferson and, you know, Hawk and all these guys or, you know, like, he didn't have half the team. You know, he was doing it with guys like Sidney Rice, you know, like.
You know what, though? Look at Rodgers, you know, he's been washed for 3 years. For part of those 3 years, wasn't he an MVP one of those 3 years? Well, his last year in did he win MVP his last year in Green Bay?
I don't think so.
Or was it 2 years?
It was the year before.
Yeah.
But either way, man, like, I don't think he's completely washed. I think he's definitely showing signs of decline. But also, he was playing for the Jets, and the Jets, like, you know, they can't put it together to save their lives, man.
Look,
like, the Vikings have a decent offensive line. They have a great defense. They have weapons. They have a good coach. Like, there's a lot to like.
So, Joe, last year, to add to your argument here, last year he threw for 3,897 yards, a 63% completion percentage, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks, and a QBR of 96.7.
Yeah, and that's with the Jets.
Yeah.
I would expect those numbers to go up with the Vikings having Addison and Jefferson and, and a decent offensive line.
I mean, and if you want to look at his last 3 years, in 2023 is a wash because he was, 3 snaps and out. In 2022 with Green Bay, he still threw for almost 3,700 yards with 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a QBR of 74.1, a rating of 91.1. The year before that, he was MVP in 21. He threw for 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a rating of 111.9. The year before that, which was also an MVP year, his quarterback rating was 121. And he threw for 4,300 yards, 48 touchdowns, 5 picks. Last year was his highest interception, actually, his tied for his third highest all time in his career, with 2 of the top 3 coming in the last 3 years, in 22 and 24. He threw the most picks he's thrown in a long time in his career. I wouldn't say he's washed.
No, he's showing the signs of decline, but he's not washed. Yeah, that's the part that would concern me.
Did you hear that within the Jets organization that he was a cancer in the locker room? I don't think him and KOC have issues like he did with Saleh. Zero improv skills. Yeah, and Tua doesn't have them either. I don't know if Rodgers would be a cancer. I don't know, but look at hopefully the Rodgers saga ends here within the next 2 weeks. It'd be nice. I don't know how much movement we're going to get on guys like Chubb and Trey Hendrickson and Aaron Rodgers before camp. That's a problem. Now we're in that position where, maybe June 1st this year we'll see some more movement because there are some guys who might be June 1st cuts where they had to wait till June 1st because they had already used their designated cuts, right? That they're allowed, 2 that they can designate as June 1st cuts, and then after that they got to wait. So we might see some June 1st cuts that free some guys up this year. I think some teams are kind of waiting to see what happens on June 1st, who gets released, who doesn't, who gets restructured, who doesn't. And then you might see guys like trades happen, like Trey Hendrickson. You might see Chubb sign. You might see Rodgers sign. I think there's a little bit of wait.
Yeah, and there's also guys are going to get cut in camp too. There'll be guys that get cut in camp that you don't expect.
So what do you think the odds are Trey Hendrickson gets traded from Cincinnati?
I mean, I think the odds are pretty good, but I think Cincinnati's going to have to come down on what they're asking because they have to keep in mind that the whatever team signs him is going to have to also, or trades for him, is going to have to also sign him to a long-term deal. That automatically affects trade value. You can't get, a second plus plus other picks, and they're going to pay all this money. You get the luxury of getting him off your books. That's what you get. That's what you're basically getting out of the trade.
But here's the thing. Right now, with Burrow, Higgins, and Chase under contract, right? They have $26 million in cap. Next year, those 3 guys are still under contract, and they've got $55 million cap. So with Hendrickson taking $18 million now, they could give him a $10 million raise and still be at $45 million in cap coming in the next offseason and have 54 men. They already have. Look, for next year's roster, they already have 53 people under contract without Hendrickson. You sign Trey Hendrickson, now you've got 54 guys under contract, right, as of today, if it would happen today, and you'd have, you give them, let's say, $30 million, you'd have $25 million in principle, you have at least $25 million cap space, and the way they do you'd have what they have now. Put it that way. They could give them the $10 million raise, and they could maintain. Whoa. Okay. I just had a power flux. Everything just shut down and came back up. Anywho, my internet stayed nice. Anywho, they could sign them right to the extension, and their money situation would be relatively the same. I don't think the Bengals are in a rush to do anything. The Bengals can pay him if they really want to. I think their problem is they don't necessarily want to pay him because of his age, and they're worried that he's going to age out.
And it's a legit concern. Like you've got the best of them, like it's always better to sell high. Like, he's coming off a great year. Like I would sell now and use that 30 million to try to put together some kind of a defense. Cause right now you're going to have to score 40 points a game. It's a good thing you got Chase and Higgins under contract because you have no defense to stop anybody. So
Joe thinks I've been the cave for the last 10 years. Okay. Hey, Joe.
Yeah. I don't know, man. To keep Burrow looking good, I don't know, bro. Like that's wild to me. I think Burrow's an excellent quarterback.
I think really the Bengals they can afford to keep him and still sign a third receiver. Like you got $25 million in cap. If you extend them and give them $30 million a year, you still have your $25 million cap next year, and then even at $30 million, you've still got $25 million cap next year. But if you convert the signing bonus, this, that, and the other, all the little magic, that $30 million average becomes $25 million against the cap. So, you could still have $35 million cap next year and pay him if you're the Bengals. I don't know if the Bengals are as hot to move him as some people think, or even I may have thought initially, because they've got a decent amount of cap space. And as far as Rodgers, I don't know if I've heard of him being a cancer in the locker room with his teammates. Now, coaching, like with Saleh, another story completely. But guys follow him around. So if you go, he gets a loyalty for a reason. I don't know if he's a cancer to the locker room, but I won't say he's cupcakes either. It's maybe a mixed bag depending on the situation, but we'll see what goes on with Rodgers. That drama just needs to end. And he's not saying that Burrow is bad. He's just saying the Bengals are stupid, basically. But I mean, Trey Henderson, they can sign him and still have the money. They still got money. They got room to maneuver. It's just what other issues are the Bengals trying to fix with that money, and does paying Henderson really impede that? And I think, look, if you give them, good morning, JB. I think if the Bengals give Trey Henderson a 3-year extension with year 2 and 3 maybe being a team option, why not?
Yeah, it makes financial sense, but I would try to, you're basically trotting out Trey Hendrickson to stop an entire NFL offense. Like I would use that money elsewhere. And, even if you don't get the better guys in the league, you got to upgrade at several positions, man.
And that goes back to the Cole Kmet trade. It's the reason why I don't think Cole Kmet would be part of the trade. I don't think they're looking for offensive weapons. They want defense, right? Because they're going to have to rebuild the defense. And unless you have a defensive piece you can give them, I don't think a player will be involved. I think it's going to be straight up draft capital for them. I don't think a player will be involved. Really, we don't see too many player trades anymore like that. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag. Look, would he help any team in the North? Yeah, I think. And the great thing is, I think the Bears, in a trade war of teams who were willing to give up a second-round pick in the North, win that race because fairly or unfairly, the Bears will be thought of as having the worst trade, having the worst record of the 4, so the pick would be better. All of what happened with Khalil Mack and the whole, trade war with Green Bay and Chicago to get him, and the Raiders went with Chicago because they thought we'd have we'd give them a better pick. It did end up working out that way for them, but that's the way teams kind of operate. I don't know. See what with what we were hearing in Chicago, Trey Henderson's contract dispute, Nick Chubb coming, which player is more important to the team?
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
It depends on if Chubb comes back even close to what he was. If Chubb comes back even close to what he was, that's a huge piece for your offense.
I think if Chubb came back at 75%, I would go with Chubb. And here's why. The defense was not bad. It dropped off last year after they fired Eberflus. That's understandable. You just fired your DC and your head coach. He was one and the same. Now you've got Allen in there as your full-time DC. I think the defense rebounds a little bit that way. You've got pretty good personnel. The other reason the defense kind of slipped a little bit last year, besides the Brisker injury, is they were on the field so damn much. The offense couldn't sustain drives. The offense couldn't stay on the field a lot. So I think Chubb is more of an impact. He keeps that offense on the field more. You know, he helps keep that offense more on the field between him and Loveland and Burrow the third. You know, the weaponry and the retooled offensive line. That Bears offense should be on the field more, which will then give the defense more of a rest. So he kind of affects both ways. Hendrickson is great on the defensive side. He's going to put your offense on the field a little bit more, though, too, right? Maybe get you some more 3-and-outs, get you some big sacks. But I think Chubb would actually impact us more than Hendrickson. If you could get both, great. Let me see. Chubb doesn't change the top 5 offensive scoring. Hendrickson with the sacks is the only reason they won 9 games, is JB's argument. But Chubb wouldn't be coming to a top 5 offense. I don't think the Bears are a top 5 offense yet. Could they become that? Maybe. Yeah, he's going to be – I agree with JB. He's more suited to be the number 2, but Chubb-Swift combination is what they're looking at doing. So it's not like a traditional 1-2 like Mike is saying there. It's not like, you know, they're a tandem at that point. Kind of like what they do up in Minnesota and what a couple other teams do. So
yeah, because Chubb is going to go between the tackles.
Right. Chubb is going to be your guy between the tackles. Swift, when he gets the ball, is going outside the tackles. And there'll be a little bit, you know, where they switch roles a little bit, throw teams off a little bit, you know. But, I mean, that's the basic, you know, gist of it. It's not outside the realm of possibilities. The Bears could do both. I mean, you know, that would be utopia right there, right? The Bears sign Chubb for $3 to $5 million, and get Hendrickson for a second rounder and some additional picks, maybe a second, a fifth, and the following year's third, maybe something like that, you know, and then consign him to a contract and redo money. And you get Chubb, like maybe you give him a 2-year deal at a 4-year, you know, $4 million average or something like that, where you have options. But I mean, you could really load this Bears team up, and it would be scary. It would be scary if you added both Chubb and Hendrickson to that Bears roster. It would also get the heads in Chicago growing. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, people getting Super Bowl tats before they should.
Yeah.
So there's our short comment in the morning.
I don't know. I don't think they're going to get both. I think it's a one or the other. I would choose Chubb because, you know, I think he affects your defense too, because he can keep you guys on the field, your offense on the field more. And, you know, your defense isn't bad. It's got some young players on it, but, you know, like any of those guys could take a step forward. And I would rather, if it was me, I would rather build through the draft on my defense. Like, I'd rather wait till next year. If I don't get the pass rush I wanted this year, I just draft another pass rusher next year. Like, you know.
Deo is going to be that guy. Because remember, they didn't sign Deo based off his, you know, huge amount of sacks he did not have last year with the Colts. They based it off of what we have on the roster already and what they think he's going to be. That's why they signed Deo. And so I think Poles and company think they're good. Now, adding Hendrickson, obviously they won't say no if it's something they could do. I think if the Bears can add Chubb as well, or add Chubb on a $4 million a year contract or whatever, $3 to $4 million a year contract, I think it's value added with Swift because it's a tandem at that point. You still have Rojo. right? Who you can sprinkle in there. So I like Rojo. I think if you did that, you've got 3 very solid running backs in Chicago. So I think that's more of a need than the edge. But because you look at the Bears on edge, you can say, okay, you got 3 solid guys. You got Dale, you got Booker, you've got Sweat, right? Booker started to show a little bit towards the end of the year during his rookie campaign, took like 26% of the snaps, started playing better. Dale, they signed it for $8 million based on what they think he's going to be. They think he's going to take a step up. But then your running back room right now is Swift, Rojo, who we've yet to really use properly. And then, Wheeler? So
yeah.
I think you could would be more of an immediate take.
See, I think you could go. It would make a lot of sense to go like Chubb and Clowney, because you could get them both players for under $10 million, and you address. Now you have 4 pass rushers, and you have another running back. Like another thing that you could do is you could throw, like I said, throw Rojo in the trade package with the Bengals, because they need a running back.
Yep.
Like they could use another running back. I don't know if they necessarily want an offensive piece, but they do need another running back. And, it's like
some interesting scenarios for us to track, Joe. I mean,
I think they would want a defensive piece.
If you had to put odds on it, what would you think is more likely to happen right now? Chubb to the Bears or Hendrickson to the Bears?
I would say Chubb. Because like you said, the Bengals don't really have a whole lot of incentive other than clearing Trey's money off the books. Like they don't have a lot of incentive to trade him. Like they can afford, if they really want to, they can afford to keep him. So their back's not against the wall. So that kind of gives them the fuck you leverage, where it's like, if you don't give us what we want, we don't have to trade him. Like we can sign him to a contract, But with Chubb, he's a free agent. Like, he's a flyer guy at this point, because, last year he came back, but he didn't look like Chubb, like normal Chubb, but he did look like I was impressed with how well he played coming back from that injury. Like, and I think, another year removed from that injury, give his leg, a chance to heal even more. I think he's going to come back somewhat close. I don't think he'll be what he was, because he's also, getting older. But if you, like you said, if you can get 75% of Chubb for $4 million, like that's a steal.
Yeah, I think he's a better flyer. I think Chubb. I agree with Cam too. I think Chubb is more the option. Pitch, one route. They need to have a non-buzz quarterback. And he's talking about, he's got Goff, who is making good money, but when it came push to shove last year, he choked harder than a hooker who's had too much, on a Friday night. Talking about choking. Look at last year. If you want to talk about Caleb, which Dorn and Mitch do always, not a bad rookie year. He showed signs. You got to give 3 years before you say bust on anything. If I want to talk about bust as a franchise, let's talk about Detroit, Mitch. You've had 3 wonderful seasons. The first one really didn't expect you to do much. You made the push. The last 2, though, you expected more. You went to the NFC Championship game, and then you won 15 games. And you still walked away without a Lombardi, without going to a Super Bowl, and now you're starting to lose talent and coaches.
Good morning, Yogi.
Morning, Yogi. I mean, and look, there are people in Detroit who think Goff needs to go. And look, they've got outs on Goff's contract after this season. Goff may be a massive bust in terms of contract for Detroit. If they don't go anywhere this year, that you might be looking for a quarterback in Detroit next year. So, I mean, be careful what you're saying there, Mitch. And as far as Dorn, what he says it daily, but I think for Love, this is a make or break year for him to prove that his contract, he was worth the contract. Last year, he wasn't worth the contract. He's got to take that next step and show that he's a franchise guy worth the big money. Or I think Green Bay in the back of their head might start to wonder, like, okay, Davey, we need to start looking, projecting out the next 2 or 3 years in the draft who's going to be our next quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think when you look at Love's entire body of work, like he had his first season starting, the first half was bad, the second half was good. And then last year it was kind of a down year. So if you look at his whole 2 years, he has a half a season of really good ball and then a season and a half of not so much.
Yeah,
So
I think Love and Goff are both kind of in those kind of situations, right? Love, I think you broke it down perfectly, Joe. Like he's had half a good season. Last year was okay, still really good, right? Still a really good quarterback. We're not saying he's not, but he may not be worth $55 million a year or $50 million a year or anything like that. And when you look at Goff, if he doesn't produce, he could be gone. And then Broski, who came in a little late, say good morning, Broski. We were talking earlier about there's a little more smoke to the Bears possibly signing Chubb. Supposedly there's an agreement somewhat tentatively there. Now they're just working on the long form contract piece of it. And then there's more rumors about Trey Hendrickson being traded to the Bears. And we were talking about that earlier as well.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I was listening in for a lot of the show. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic here with Hendrickson because, there's what the Bengals, in theory want for Hendrickson, which is, over the moon, like, 2 or 3 firsts or whatever ridiculous thing they're going to say. And then there's like the reality of it. And it's like, when it comes down to it, I think the longer the Bengals wait to move him, the more it's going to lower what they get for him. So I think from the Bengals perspective, they're better off trading him sooner rather than later. That's my theory right now. But, and for like a team like the Bears, okay, so like, I don't expect the Bears obviously to win a Super Bowl this year. I'm just hoping they can actually contend for the NFC Championship next year. Getting Hendrickson, I don't think it necessarily makes them a Super Bowl contender, but it can make them pretty freaking good. And you know what I mean? Like, who knows, really? Like, if you have 2 DNs and Sweat and Hendrickson both stay healthy, they both play how they should, you never know. But what I'm saying is, I like what Joe was saying. You guys, or both you guys actually were saying earlier, if you could trade like a second round pick and like a next year's 5th or something like that, and get him. It's the key to this is the actual contract extension you're going to give him. Yeah, 3-year deal, 2 years guaranteed. That type of thing. Like that's something that you. Even though I'm hesitant to do that, and yes, it is a big risk. If it could be something like that, I think I would do it. Like if you could avoid giving a first round pick and avoid giving him more than 2 years guaranteed. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem doing it for Trey Hendrickson.
So Broski, let me sprinkle something else in there for you because we like all these conveyances and of coincidence and history. The last time the Bears had a Week 5 bye, you know what season that was?
Are you going to say 18?
It was at 2018, a year not as dissimilar to this in terms of we were expecting the team to be better, right, than the year before and to take a little bit of a step. Now, they went ahead of schedule, right? I think that year was an ahead of schedule year. But same situation, you brought in Khalil Mack right before the season on a blockbuster trade. We thought we had a pretty good team around Mitch that would compete a little bit more. Of course, Dorn says we're not Super Bowl ready. Of course, Dorn's going to say that even if we were. Some similarities there. First year head coach.
Yeah, and I was going to say.
Broski, I mean, maybe some lightning will strike twice.
Yeah, you never know. And honestly, to Dorn's comment, I mean, that's pretty much been my thoughts on. And to an extent, it still is my thoughts on acquiring Hendrickson. However, since Hendrickson came out and was like, basically, I'm not playing for you, I want to get traded, essentially, is to me what it sounds like. Like, I don't think he's going to be back. And I don't think Cincinnati's just going to let him sit. Like, they're going to trade him and get something for him. I don't think they would go through let's just let Trey, sit the season out. I think they would try to get rid of him. So that being said, yes, he's 31. Like I said, it would have to be kind of like a cater to situation because, like Joe was saying earlier, like the whole thing with this trade is what is Cincy getting out of it? The big thing they're getting out of is they don't have to give him a contract, so that cap space, you know what I mean? So, like I said, if it's like a second and even like a second in a fifth round or second in a next year's fourth round, and you can sign him to only giving him like 2 years guaranteed. And then, Ken, what you said is interesting too. Maybe it's a 4-year deal and only 2 of the 4 are guaranteed and the other 2 are team options. If it could be something like that, that would, I mean, honestly, I would probably do it. Because the one thing Pulse has been good at is managing the cap. And the Bears are not in cap trouble and they could swing.
Well, and Broski, let's throw another curve in here. Let's say, look, at Mike's in the comment talking about 18 was great defense. It had offense that took advantage of short fields, correct. The possibility of having both sides of the ball being really good would definitely put the Bears in play. And growing on Mike's comment there, if the Bears add Chubb and Trey Hendrickson, how much would the music change on the Bears team nationally when you add a premier edge rusher, a running back who may not be in his prime, but even at 75% is going to improve the capability of an offense that's already looking to be improved. It has a ton of weapons as it is. With the 2 tight ends, you got 3 wide receivers, you got, an upgraded, I'm going to do the air quotes here, upgraded offensive line because we haven't seen it yet. So if that offensive line holds and you add Chubb and you add Hendrickson, even if the offensive line isn't as good, if the Bears defense can give you more short fields now because you add Hendrickson, it changes the dynamic of the NFC North a lot by adding those 2 players.
Yeah, if they add Chubb and Chubb can actually play, I'm not I've had my thoughts on Chubb. I really don't have that much faith that he'll be even able to contribute that much. But let's say they sign him. Well, let's say he does. Yeah, that would definitely give the Bears offense a boost and a much needed between the tackles, running back for sure.
And I think the Bears would take the flyer on Chubb because he's not expensive. They have more than enough cap space to absorb it for 2 years. 2 years, $3 million. His value right now is about $3 million. So sign him on a 2-year, $6 million, or even a 3-year, $9 million deal with your outs being in year 2 and 3. I think you could definitely get Chubb for that, or somewhere in that ballpark. He's low cost, high reward, low risk, high reward. He doesn't have to be the Chubb that carries a team. He's just got to be a Chubb that can take a little bit off Swift and do better than what Rojo would have done. John says we're better off with Zadarius Smith, so Zadarius Smith can collect his 4th division helmet. But then if you can flip a trade for Hendrickson, I think by adding both players, you add value on both sides of the ball and kind of change the dynamic of the division.
Sure.
If you can't get Hendrickson, like I said, I still think you may not get as much value, but in a way you get more value if you just went and got Clowney.
Yeah,
like you'll have your 4th pass rusher. He's going to cost you like $7-8 million tops, for a season. He's going to give you 5 to 7 sacks, and maybe even more. Like you don't know because like he was playing in Carolina last year. Like Carolina is, they just aren't very good.
I wanted to touch on Clowney really quick because he's in my, he's from basically my backyard right now. He's from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Came back to his hometown team and just. Really, from what people are saying, just looked at this program is a complete joke and just took a year off, essentially. Like the season before, I mean, he was getting he started 15 games for the Ravens the season before and had 9.5 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
He came to Carolina, only played 14 games, but still had 5.5 sacks, but he was not engaged. Like he didn't want to go back to his hometown. He knew there'd be distractions and whatnot. Clowney's like definitely out of the old head, like the older defensive end, free agent DNs that are out there. Personally, is the one I would sign if I had to. I don't like the 5 or 6, older guys that are out there. Just because I actually think he might have a little bit of juice left. Now, I'm talking like if he signed with the Bears, he's getting them probably 5 to 7 sacks. But he's not an every down player. Like, he's going to be situational. He's going to be, rotational, whatever you call it. But if a guy, let's say Sweat or Dio gets hurt, Clowney can come in and start, and he can play the run. He can set the edge. He can get some pass rush.
Wouldn't it be ironic if they signed Chubb and Clowney?
Honestly, that I would feel a lot. So Hendrickson, yes, is definitely a better player right now than Clowney. That being said, I would feel much better signing Clowney and Chubb rather than trading for him.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
It's low risk, high reward. You're going to spend maybe $10 million on the two of them, and you're going to get, you're not going to get maybe the same production out of Clowney that you would out of Hendrickson, but at the same time, you might not necessarily need 17 sacks from one guy. Like Clowney's going to give you. He still has some juice, I think, and
both players combined are going to do enough to elevate your team to overtake that one guy would have given you. And look at, like Broski said, we're not schedule-wise. I don't think neither of us are saying NFC Championship game this year. Maybe that's a year off. So they kind of keep you on schedule. Unlike 18, where you got a year ahead of schedule. But you add those two guys, you might change your schedule a little bit because it could give you just that what you need to get over the hump in the North and then within the NFC itself. So some interesting possibilities that Poles has to play with right now. And I think if these rumors about Chubb basically come to Chicago and that they're basically just working the contract right now, that it's basically like he's coming, they just got to get to an agreement that they've kind of we want to be working together, and they got to come to agreement. If that's true, I think it changes the landscape a lot already in terms of what we do with Hendrickson and what we do, elsewhere on that D line.
Yeah, and I also do feel like I still love the Kyle Monangai Pacheco player comparison. They went to the same college. They both went to Rutgers. They're both like smaller kind of running backs. Like they both kind of have the same kind of style. They're both kind of just like NFL ready. He could get some run this year if the Bears don't make a move and sign a Chubb or someone like that.
Yeah, but I would sign Chubb. I think he's worth.
Both guys drafted in the 7th round. Also, that's a lot of coincidences, a lot of similarities between Monangai and Pacheco.
And I like Pacheco. Pacheco runs really hard.
Yeah,
he's like a ping pong or like a pinball.
That's what Monangai's like, man. It's crazy. Like they really are. Like maybe it's something with the Rutgers program, the style running back they produce. But yeah, both 7th round picks, both from New Jersey, like both the same size, both the same style. Like that could be a really nice steal of a pick right there.
I think signing Clowney would be good too. Because honestly, I think if you signed Chubb and Clowney, unless Caleb Williams just absolutely has a dog shit year, I see the Bears as a playoff team on paper.
Well, I'll give us something more to talk about tomorrow as we're about out of time today. Don't forget, JB will be talking Lions football after us. Mike, the Bear fan, hopping on late, but here he is as we're about ready to leave for the day. Hey, we will be back tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Everyone have a great rest of your day. JB is following us next. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network on Roku and Fire Stick. This is the first place to find all the latest NFL news, trades, and rumors. If you have a Roku or Fire Stick, access your menu and locate the search bar to perform a channel search. Then simply type in Huddle Sports Network. After completing the search, this logo should appear. Then add to your menu and you're good to go. We cover all your football needs, from breaking news to trades and rumors.
Ken and Ken in the morning, 10 to 11. Wake your mind up, this the sports heaven. Next up is Lions Talk with Jeremy B. 11 to 12, breaking news you see. Then we roll into the Daily Huddle, no doubt. From 12 to 1, hear what it's about. We got the beats, we got the flow. Huddle Sports Network is the place to go. Huddle up, check the vibe, it's lit. NFL news all day, man, that's a hit. Every weekday, we bring the heat. can't take a seat. Huddle up, watch the action.